Watch the student panelists come down while you're coming up. When I taught statics, who in here is doing statics right now? Okay. A typical statics question would be something's in equilibrium. You have to write that some of the forces in the x direction equals some of the forces in the y direction equals. And then you often have to solve two simultaneous equations. If I'm doing a test and I'm pressed for time, I'm going to write my Newton's laws, a nice free body diagram, and I'm probably not going to solve the two equations and two unknowns because I've demonstrated my understanding of statics. I haven't demonstrated my understanding of algebra by solving those two equations to get numbers. Now, as I say that, as you go through the program, I'm sure you guys will agree, you get to know your professors. Some professors are not going to give you very many part marks at all unless you have the answer. Others will give you the vast majority of your marks if you demonstrate the understanding. So talk to your professors before you implement any strategy like I've just advanced. But think of how can I maximize my demonstration of understanding of the material that's being tested. Okay, so I'd like each of the panelists to just introduce yourself, say your name, say what discipline you're in right now, and say what hurdle you had to overcome in first year to get to where you are.
Hi, my name is Nadine Kelly. I'm currently in Term 6 Mechanical. The biggest part, or hardest thing I found looking back at my first year now is I didn't know how to study. I didn't have to study in high school, and what I did study, I just memorized. So I had to learn to actually study and not memorize and get, like you're talking, getting meaningful information out of the stuff that I was looking at. So that took a while to get a hold of, but once I did, it made everything a lot easier.
Hello, my name is Tendai and I'm Team 6 Civil. The greatest challenge for me in my first year was coming to Canada as a newcomer, getting to meet with other people so that we could work together on assignments. And for my first few assignments, I didn't do very well because I was only sticking myself to just my ideas. But as time progressed, I managed to meet other people and to manage to start working on assignments together, and that actually helped my grades. Up to date, I still make sure that I never do something by myself.
Hi there, my name is Sam Kawat, and I'm also a Term 6 Civil Engineering student. Pretty much what Nadine said kind of summed up my whole first year, and I tried to memorize every process. I tried to memorize the notes, I tried to memorize the textbook, I tried to memorize everything, and that put so much pressure on myself. And it didn't really matter how many questions I did, I was just memorizing. Now when talking about statics and free body diagrams and bending moment, shear force diagrams, I feel like now I can almost study one question, and when I understand it, you can throw any question at me, and I know how to break it down into pieces and components. Maybe not get to the very, very bottom answer, but I understand what I'm doing, and it helps me in all my courses. I think, so I would definitely recommend don't try to memorize, and if that works for somebody else, it might not work for you, so figure out what works best for you. If that's, like, I know some people like take notes, like word for word that profs are taking. Sometimes you need to make side notes, sometimes you need to reword what they say to make sense for you, so you use your notes more effectively, and you're able to look back and understand what you're writing down. And once I even though teachers are talking, just because they're not writing doesn't mean you can't write down what they're saying. If that's something that helps you learn or reinforce or highlight it or underline it, just make sure you're studying so you understand it personally, and I feel like that'll benefit you better instead of trying to feel like you have to do everything like everybody else, and it doesn't work that way, and it's okay. And just, you come out of the test, and if you get a 70, but you studied it one way, somebody else gets a 70, you studied it another way, that's perfectly fine, as long as it works for you. And that's my good advice.
Hi, my name's Maria. I just completed Term 4 Civil, and I'm on my second work term. The biggest struggle for me was getting really disappointed about bad marks. I was used to high school getting 80s with little to no study, and then I came to Mullen and was getting 60s, doing exactly what I did in high school. My friends were doing exactly what they did in high school and were getting the 80s, and I couldn't understand what I was doing wrong to get those 60s. And it ended up actually for me in the winter term, stopped going to classes, just going to the tests, that sort of thing, and ended up making me have to do a second year of engineering 1. So basically for me, it was learning to accept my failures, use that as a way to motivate me to do better next time, and it's worked for me so far.
Hello, I'm Victor. I just finished term 4 mechanical engineering. Probably the biggest thing, the difference between high school and engineering is in high school you're being babysat, and in engineering it's completely up to you if you pass or fail. It's your responsibility. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You have to figure out how to study for you. For me personally, I have a support group of friends and we just study together. We learn everything together and that just works for us. Maybe you need to work alone and that's totally fine.
Like, what do you guys find like you're struggling with? Is it the core subjects? Is it you feel like you have too much to do? Energy?
I had to sleep. I can't cram. I can't stay up till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning studying and then go right to test at 9. Whatever I spend from like 12 o'clock to 4, I get nothing out of it. I was like, all right, gotta go to bed. That's it. That's my biggest thing. I need to sleep. I can't do the cram. It doesn't work for me. I'll lose anything that I got before that, and then I'm just drained for the next day.
I found in first year when I was completing a test, I could never actually finish it. And now that I'm in like term 3 and 4, I guess it's because I know how to study. I've been doing all these problems. I'm kind of getting quicker to do the problems. With the statics, and you'll eventually do courses like dynamics, mechanics of solids, they all use that Hibbler book and basically do all of those problems that are assigned to you. It seems like a ton. It's actually what I did for my Mech of Solids final this past summer, and I actually did pretty decent on it. I was one of the only people who actually finished within the allotted time. There's a lot of people who had really struggling to finish.
Yeah, that was the worst part. Well, you knew all the stuff, but you couldn't finish in the time. That was pretty much my last marks.
Like, another thing elaborating on that is kind of taking the time. I know people don't want to do it, but read your test over, just glimpse at, see how much marks are worth for each question. Know what you're kind of getting yourself into. And yeah, if it is 6 pages and you look at your first question, it's 5%, and there's one at the very, very end that's worth 20%, you kind of know, like, don't wait till last minute to finish that 20% question. So I think even now, like, I know if we kind of have 2 evenly, like, distributed questions, I guess, and we have an hour, I know that technically I have half an hour for one question and half an hour for the other. So I do what I can for the first question. When my half an hour's up, I continue on to the second question because I know that's where the marks are distributed. And I find that helps me a lot because the tests don't really seem as long when you know where to put your time when you write them. So just, I know, like, you just want to get writing, get started, and like spill out everything that you just like read 5 minutes before class, but just read it through and like know where the marks are being given. And that way, if you only finish like 70% of the exam, but you did, like, that was worth the, like, so many more marks than the other little bit you didn't finish, like, it's okay, you can walk away, breathe. So what you didn't answer a couple like 2-point questions, you still like finished what you needed to finish to do okay.
Another quick tip with regards to recovering from tests and stuff. So like everyone is a bad exam sometimes. It's part of engineering. Everyone is a bad exam at some point. So like moving forward, you don't want to stress too much about one bad exam. It's like trying to identify the things where you failed. So if the test is too long, so coming back to what you said, or if there is a certain part that you didn't focus on, so rather than stressing too much about that test, just look at those things and then work on those things moving forward. It only gets better from here.
I don't know how much of an adjustment you've had to make to living in St. John's and being on this campus outside of the school. So I imagine it can be overwhelming for at least the first little while to be living in a new city, being in maybe a bigger city than you're used to, different buildings, different construction styles. So how many of you are not from St. John's? Okay, so how many lived in residence? So 2 lived in residence. And the rest of you did have to make some kind of a cultural community adjustment.
Just like elaborating on that, like I moved here in grade 11, And I was living with my parents, everything was fine and dandy, did term 3, term 4. My parents moved last year to Calgary, and that was a whole other adjustment, like making meals, doing your laundry, like, and you have an exam tomorrow, like, it's constantly changing, but it's like an adjustment, and you kind of figure it out, and you talk with other people, and so even now, I'm still adjusting to term 6 or term 5 without my parents, and without like kind of having that routine and developing a whole new routine. So it's constantly changing, but you kind of learn to adapt. And I think the best advice Tendai ever gave me, and I met Tendai this year, yeah, a while ago. He was just like, there's greater things in life to worry about. Because I would be white in the face coming out of a test. I would be like, oh my God, like I would almost be in tears and everything like that. And when Tendai told me that, I feel like, bring it on. Like there is like, so what, I get a bad mark, there'll be other things to recover, and it happens to everybody, but just don't feel like you can't pick yourself back up off the ground.
As you make more friends, you'll find it gets easier in terms of not just people to study with, but people to hang out with.